If you're here because the thumbnail caught your eye, yes, it's real. The universe's deadliest predator, the same one that shredded fleets like paper, the one even elder civilizations feared to name, ended up chasing sticks for humans. Before we get there, though, you need the story of how it all began. Trust me, this is one for the ages. Make sure you hit that like button, drop a comment about how you'd react if your ship suddenly found itself face to face with the most feared life form in existence. And of course, subscribe if you love tales where humanity surprises the stars. Now let's begin. The archives of the Galactic Council were older than most suns, but their records on the creature were short and fragmented. No one had ever truly studied it. They called it by a dozen names: the Devourer, Extinction Incarnate, the Fleet Eater, but all their legends agreed on one thing: where it appeared, no armada returned. That was the story Captain Elias Ward had been given in his briefing packet, though he found himself smiling as he scrolled through it. The man had the look of someone built for hard service. Broad shoulders beneath a plain duty jacket, gray streaks at his temples despite being barely into his 30s, and eyes sharpened by years of command. He had fought pirates in the asteroid belts of Salus Prime, defended convoys against raiders with ships twice the size of his own, and yet none of those victories brought him the recognition of the elder races. No, those civilizations barely tolerated human presence in council space. Which was why Elias had volunteered for this mission. Where others recoiled from stories of an unstoppable beast, he saw opportunity. If humanity could stare into the abyss where fleets had vanished and still return, it would carve their name into galactic memory forever. "You're still smiling," said Dr. Cale Riven from across the briefing chamber. Elias glanced at him. Riven was nothing like a soldier. He was lean, almost wiry, with restless hands that fidgeted with the data slate he carried everywhere. His hair was unkempt, falling into eyes that glittered with curiosity rather than caution. Officially, he was the ship's chief xenobiologist, but truthfully, Elias suspected Cale had only signed onto the patrol because he couldn't resist the possibility of seeing the predator with his own eyes. "You think it's funny?" Elias asked. "I think," Cale replied, leaning back against the wall, "that the Council's version of history is always the one least worth believing. They say the predator destroyed fleets? Maybe. Or maybe fleets wandered into its territory without asking what it wanted." Elias chuckled. "You sound like you're about to write poetry about it." Cale's grin was sharp. "Everything's worth poetry if it kills dreadnoughts." The intercom broke in, the steady voice of First Officer Caro. "Captain, Council Representative on Secure Channel." Elias sighed, then strode to the console. The hollow field shimmered to life, revealing a tall elder delegate with pale translucent skin and eyes like molten silver. Their voice carried the weight of centuries, clipped and cold. "Captain Ward, you have been briefed on your assignment. Search the Rigel expanse for signs of the predator. Recover what data we can." "Standard patrol," Elias said casually. The delegate's voice cut sharp. "Do not trivialize this. You will not find survivors. You will not find wreckage intact. You will find only silence. If you see the beast, you will not return. This mission is a necessity to measure its current activity, nothing more. You are disposable." Elias leaned forward, smile fading. "We'll see about that." The call terminated instantly. Cale whistled. "They really like you." "They're terrified," Elias replied. "Terrified that a human ship will go where theirs wouldn't." He turned to Cale, eyes narrowing. "You're certain you want to be here? If the legends are true." "If the legends are true," Cale cut in, "this is history. Do you think I'd give that up to stay safe in some council laboratory?" His grin softened. "Besides, I've seen how you fly. I trust you more than I'd ever trust their stories." Elias couldn't help but respect the man's courage or madness. Sometimes the line blurred. He straightened. "Then prepare. We enter the expanse at 0600. The hours before departure passed in tense anticipation. Crew whispered rumors, comparing fragmented accounts from other species. Ships dissolving into light, communications ending mid-scream, navigational records showing impossible accelerations before vanishing. Some said the predator was a living weapon left behind by an ancient war. Others believed it was a natural force, the galaxy's balance embodied in flesh and fang. None of them said it aloud, but all feared the same end. When 0600 arrived, Elias took the command chair. "Bring us into the expanse." Stars warped on the view screens as the ship's drives carried them into the sector. What greeted them was a graveyard, hulks of warships drifting in silence, their hulls torn open like paper, their reactors long since cold. The bridge hushed. Elias rose slowly. He'd expected ruins but not this many. Dozens, maybe hundreds, stretched into the void, fragments of every race that had ever dared to fight the Predator. "Captain," Caro's voice was faint. "Sensors are inconsistent. The wreckage doesn't match normal battle patterns. Some hulls are cut cleanly, others twisted apart. And," his hand trembled on the console. "No escape pods. None." Cale leaned forward, eyes alight. "Look at the edges. That's not weapon damage. That's teeth marks. Enormous ones." Elias felt the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. This was no mere legend. Something had lived here. Something that could bite through reinforced battleship armor as if it were bone. He forced his voice steady. "All stations, alert condition 2. No unnecessary transmissions. We proceed cautiously." The ship slid deeper into the expanse. Wreckage gave way to silence, then to an emptiness that felt unnatural. The stars themselves seemed distant, dulled, as though the void consumed even their light. Cale spoke quietly as though afraid of waking something. "Do you feel that?" Elias nodded. It wasn't sound or sight, but a presence pressing against the mind. The crew shifted uncomfortably. Then the sensors chimed. A contact. Enormous. Moving with impossible grace. The bridge fell silent. On the view screen, the darkness parted. Something vast glided through the void, scales black as obsidian, reflecting faint starlight like oil on water. Its body was sleek, serpentine yet powerful, its limbs built not for clumsy thrusts but for impossible precision. And its eyes, two suns burning gold, fixed upon the human ship with a focus that made every heart skip. Gasps echoed across the bridge. Caro whispered, "Extinction incarnate?" Elias clenched the arm of his chair. The Predator did not attack. It circled them, studying, its movements fluid as if space itself bent to its will. The wreckage around them seemed to tremble as the creature's passage stirred ancient debris. Cale leaned closer to the screen, eyes wide, filled not with terror but with fascination. "It's not attacking. It's curious." Elias couldn't look away. He felt the weight of countless civilizations' fear pressing against him, but beneath it, something else. A chance. A test. The Predator's golden gaze lingered on the ship, unblinking, unhurried. Then it closed the distance in a single motion, faster than sensors could calculate. The entire vessel shuddered as claws as long as shuttles scraped against the hull. Warning klaxons blared, but Elias held his hand up before Caro could give the order to fire. "Hold position," he commanded. The crew stared at him as if he'd lost his mind. The Predator's head loomed outside the viewport, filling it entirely. Its jaws parted, revealing rows of fangs glowing faintly in the starlight. For one endless heartbeat, Elias thought it would end them. Then it stopped. Its eyes flicked, not at the ship, but at him. And in that instant, Elias Ward realized the Council was wrong. This wasn't mindless destruction. This was recognition. The Predator lowered its head, tapping the hull with the gentleness of a giant testing fragile ground. It lingered, then drifted backward into the void, circling once more as though inviting them deeper. The crew sat frozen, every breath held. Elias finally exhaled, slow and deliberate. His voice was calm, but the words carried the gravity of everything they had just witnessed. "It knows we're here. And it wants us to follow." The Predator did not vanish into the darkness. It lingered, gliding just beyond sensor range, a silhouette against the fractured light of dying stars. Every sweep of its colossal tail stirred the debris field as though it commanded the very void to shift at its passing. The ship's crew moved like people inside a cathedral, hushed, reverent, afraid that sound itself might awaken something they could not control. Elias sat forward in the command chair, studying every flicker of the creature's movement. His jaw was set, but his eyes betrayed something else, fascination and a dangerous kind of recognition. He knew predators. He had seen them on Earth and on worlds far from it. He knew when a beast hunted and when it was simply watching. This one was watching. "Captain," Caro said, his voice tight. "It could destroy us at any moment. Why hasn't it?" Cale leaned over the railing, his slate forgotten in his hands. "Because it doesn't want to. Look at the pattern. It's not random circling, it's deliberate. It's testing us." Caro snapped his gaze to him. "Testing us? This thing has destroyed entire fleets. You think it's curious?" Cale's grin was unsettling in its certainty. "Yes. And I think that's the only reason we're alive right now." Elias lifted a hand, silencing them both. "Sensors. Can we track its exact movement?" A technician swallowed hard. "Interference is heavy. But we can approximate." "Do it." I want every nuance recorded. Every shift, every trajectory. We'll map its behavior. The creature circled once more, then darted close in a blur that sensors could barely register. The ship groaned under the sudden pressure of its presence. An entire claw, jagged as obsidian, tapped gently against the hull, leaving not a scratch. The crew flinched as though death itself had struck, but nothing followed. Elias rose, steadying himself with a palm against the railing. It's not attacking. It's communicating. No one breathed. Kale's eyes gleamed. I agree. Look at the restraint. Something with power like that doesn't tap. It crushes. Unless it doesn't want to. Caro's voice was sharp with incredulity. You're both insane. Elias didn't answer. Instead, he keyed the comms to record. Council will want proof of this. The Predator lingered for another heartbeat, its golden eyes fixed on the viewport, and then it drifted away, vanishing into the wreckage. The void swallowed it. For a long moment, silence ruled the bridge. Finally Elias said, "Track it." The technician's hands flew. Trying? Captain, it's moving faster than sensors can resolve. It's circling behind the wreckage. No, it's... His voice broke. It's gone. Cale shook his head. Not gone. Watching. Elias agreed. It's not finished with us. The silence did not comfort the crew. Every shadow outside the viewport seemed alive, every star a flicker of watching eyes. The call from the council came sooner than expected. Elias took it in the ready room with Cale at his side. The same silver-eyed delegate appeared, their voice sharp with urgency. Captain Ward, we have received your preliminary transmission. Confirm, you have encountered the Predator. Yes, Elias said simply. And you are alive. Yes. A pause laden with disbelief. Impossible. Cale stepped into view, unable to help himself. Not impossible. It saw us. It chose not to kill us. That alone disproves half your myths. The delegate's translucent skin flushed with irritation. You speak of it as if it were sentient. It is a force of annihilation, nothing more. Cale's grin was sharp. So say the races that failed to survive an encounter with it. Perhaps you frightened it. Perhaps you provoked it. Or perhaps you never understood it at all. Dr. Riven, the delegate hissed, you meddle in matters beyond comprehension. Withdraw immediately. Do not seek it out. Elias cut in, voice calm but edged. If humanity has done what none of you could, you'll want the proof. We're not retreating. We're observing. The delegate's eyes flared, molten silver brightening. You endanger all of us. If it follows you out of the expanse. Then you'd better hope it prefers our company, Elias said, and cut the transmission. Cale turned to him, eyebrows raised. That wasn't diplomacy. That was honesty, Elias replied. Back on the bridge, the tension mounted as hours passed with no sign of the beast. Every creak of metal, every flicker on the sensors felt like the prelude to destruction. Then without warning, alarms screamed. Contact, the technician shouted. Close. Inside minimum safe perimeter. The creature surged from the darkness, impossibly fast, and slammed into the hull, not as an attack but as an entry. Klaxons blared, bulkheads sealed, atmosphere hissed through ruptures, but the damage was strangely contained. The Predator was not ripping them apart. It was inside. The crew scrambled, panic threatening to break discipline. Elias barked commands, forcing order back into the chaos. Seal compartments. Evacuate breach zones. Caro, you're with me. Cale was already moving toward the corridor. If it's inside, I'm going too. Elias caught his arm. You'll stay behind. No, Cale said fiercely. You don't understand. If it wanted us dead, we'd be dead. This is something else. Let me see it. Elias studied him for a moment, then released him. Fine. But stay behind me. They moved quickly through dim corridors, emergency lights painting everything in red shadows. The sound came first, metal groaning echoing through the hull, followed by a deep, resonant rumble that was not mechanical. The landing bay doors were open. Inside, the air shimmered, thick with displaced energy, and in the center of it, the Predator crouched. It was smaller here, or perhaps simply coiled tighter, its vast frame compressed to fit within the chamber. Its golden eyes burned with a steady, unsettling calm. Claws that had raked through fleets rested lightly against the deck plating, not gouging, merely pressing. The crew held weapons trained, hands shaking. Elias raised his voice. Stand down. Captain, Caro began, but Elias cut him off. If you fire, we all die. The silence was suffocating. The Predator shifted slightly, its gaze following Elias as he stepped forward, slow, deliberate, never breaking eye contact. The rumble deepened, not hostile but resonant, like the low vibration of a great engine. Cale moved to his side, breathless. Look at its posture. Tail lowered. Jaws closed. No aggression. Elias stopped a few paces away, heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. He had faced raiders, pirates, blockades, but nothing compared to standing before a living extinction. And yet he saw it again. Recognition. The predator dipped its massive head slightly as though measuring him. Elias's hand twitched. Without thinking, he reached to his belt, pulled free a loose fragment of broken metal from the earlier hull breach. It was absurd, reckless, but the silence demanded something. He tossed it lightly across the deck. The predator's head snapped, following the arc of the fragment. For a heartbeat the room froze. Then, in one impossible motion, the beast leapt, caught the metal in its jaws and turned back toward Elias. It padded forward and dropped the fragment at his feet. Every soul in the bay stared, unable to speak. Elias's throat was dry. He looked at Cale. Cale's grin was pure triumph. I told you. It's curious. The predator rumbled again, lowering its head to the deck, waiting. Elias stared at the fragment, then at the beast. Slowly, incredulously, he realized what it wanted. Wanted to play. The silence broke, a mix of gasps and nervous laughter from the crew who could not decide if they were witnessing salvation or the beginning of a nightmare. Elias bent, picked up the fragment and tossed it again. The predator bounded after it, swift as lightning, and returned once more, dropping it before him with a sound that was unmistakable even across species. A chuff like a massive animal demanding more. The crew stood frozen, their weapons slack in their hands. Cale whispered almost reverently, "The fleet eater fetches sticks." The predator nudged Elias with the tip of its snout, golden eyes gleaming. And in that moment, Elias realized the galaxy's greatest terror had just chosen its first human companion. The landing bay had turned into an impossible theater. The predator, the devourer of fleets, crouched like an obedient beast, eyes burning gold but posture relaxed. Every instinct screamed that it should not be so, that a monster capable of reducing civilizations to ruin could never lower itself to games. And yet here it was, waiting patiently for Elias to throw another shard of metal. The crew had forgotten their weapons, too stunned to raise them again. Some gaped in silence, others whispered as though their voices might shatter the fragile miracle before them. Elias did not move immediately. His mind warred with itself. Every scrap of training told him to treat this thing as a threat, to use the moment to escape, to buy time. But his instincts told a different story. The predator could have killed them at any point. It hadn't. Instead, it had fetched a piece of scrap like a dog awaiting its master's approval. He bent slowly, never breaking eye contact, and picked up the shard again. He tossed it across the bay with a casual flick. The predator bounded after it with terrifying grace, claws tearing furrows in the deck but never breaching through. It seized the fragment in its jaws, turned, and trotted back like a loyal hound. It dropped the shard at Elias's boots and waited. The bay filled with nervous laughter, a release of pressure too great to hold. The impossible had become absurd. Cale's face glowed with vindication. Do you see? Do you all see? It isn't destruction incarnate. It's intelligent. It wants engagement. Caro muttered in disbelief. It wants fetch. Play, Cale corrected, eyes wild with excitement. The most universal form of communication there is. The predator nudged Elias again, harder this time, impatient. The gesture nearly knocked him off balance, though there was no malice in it. Elias straightened, studying the beast with the calm of a man who had already chosen a path. All right, he said quietly, more to himself than to the crew. If you want to play, then play we will. He hurled the shard across the bay once more. The predator leapt, movements blurring, its body coiling and springing with physics-defying power. The crew could not stop watching. Every second rewrote what they thought they knew of the universe. And beyond them, unseen, the council watched too. Holofeeds relayed every image back across systems. In chambers filled with delegates of 100 elder races, silence reigned. Species who had once fled at the mere whisper of the predator now stared, paralyzed, at the sight of it dropping a piece of debris at a human's feet like an eager pet. The silver-eyed delegate who had warned Elias earlier finally spoke, their voice sharp with disbelief. This is impossible. Across the chamber, another delegate whispered, no. This is worse. The humans have tamed it. The room erupted into arguments, accusations, fear. Some demanded the humans be destroyed before they could weaponize the predator. Others, quieter but no less shaken, murmured admiration. Humanity had done what none of them could. Back in the bay, Kale approached carefully, slate in hand, recording every motion. The predator's eyes tracked him but showed no hostility. Kale circled slowly, studying muscle lines, noting the way its tail swayed, the relaxed position of its jaws. His voice was a whisper of awe. It's more than instinct. Lonely. Do you understand? It doesn't want fleets to fight. It wants company. Elias kept his gaze fixed on the beast. Company doesn't tear apart armadas. Doesn't it? Kale countered, his words fevered. What if that's all it knew to do? You isolate a predator long enough, you give it nothing to challenge, nothing to bond with, it lashes out. It tests itself against everything. Until now, no one tried anything but war. The predator rumbled, low and thunderous, and nudged Elias again. He picked up the shard and threw it. The creature bolted after it like lightning. Caro rubbed his temples. I can't believe this. I can't believe we're standing here while that thing... Elias cut him off. Believe it, and pray it stays this way. The game continued, surreal in its simplicity. The predator fetched, returned, nudged, demanded again. Each repetition carved a new reality into the minds of those who watched. The destroyer of fleets was behaving like a dog desperate for attention. Kale's voice dropped, softer now, almost reverent. Do you realize what this means? Humanity has just shifted the balance of the galaxy. Every story told about this thing for centuries, fear, horror, annihilation, and here it is, wagging its tail at us. Elias exhaled slowly. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. It's still a predator. Kale's smile was fierce. So were wolves once. The hours bled away in that bay, a stalemate of wonder and disbelief. Eventually the predator curled itself into a massive coil, its golden eyes half-lidded, its body vibrating with a deep, resonant purr that shook the walls. It was resting, not out of exhaustion but contentment, like a guardian who had chosen its post. The crew dared not leave, as though turning their backs would shatter the spell. Elias finally spoke. We'll secure the bay. Rotate guards. No one makes sudden moves. No one fires. Caro's jaw tightened. And if it changes its mind? Then we're already dead, Elias said bluntly. But for now it's with us. Treat it accordingly. Kale's eyes never left the beast. We are rewriting history. News spread faster than light. The feeds of the encounter raced across the networks, and within a day every race knew the truth. The devourer had bent to humanity. Fear spread like wildfire. Civilizations that had once sworn to destroy the beast at any cost now realized that cost would be measured against humans who had its loyalty. Whispers filled the council halls. If humanity commanded the predator, then no fleet, no empire, no alliance could stand against them. Back aboard the ship, Elias ignored the storm brewing across the galaxy. His focus remained on the immediate reality, the beast in his bay, the scientist who saw salvation, the crew balanced on the edge of terror and wonder. When Kale finally pulled him aside, his words came in a rush. We need to test it further. Fetch isn't enough. We need to understand its limits, its intelligence, its boundaries. Elias frowned. And how do you suggest we do that? Ask it questions. Kale shook his head. Interaction. Challenge. We start simple. See how it responds when denied. See if it recognizes hierarchy. Elias hesitated, then nodded. Carefully. If it sees us as companions, we don't want to break that bond. Kale's smile returned. Exactly. If it has bonded, then we're not prey. We're pack. The words echoed in Elias's mind long after Kale left to prepare his tests. But the thought was absurd, yet the evidence filled the bay. The greatest predator in the galaxy had not killed them. It had chosen them. Still, unease gnawed at him. Companionship was one thing, but the galaxy would not sit idle. The council had already warned him once. They would not ignore this development. As he stood at the viewport, watching the predator slumber with the weight of a mountain, he felt the shape of the conflict ahead settling like storm clouds. This was no longer a mission of observation. It was a war of perception, and the galaxy had just crowned humanity with a weapon it had not asked for. When the predator stirred again, rising with fluid grace, it moved not toward the bay doors but toward Elias. It lowered its head, close enough that he could see the glow of its eyes reflected in his own. Elias stood tall, unflinching. For one breathless instant, the universe held still. Then the predator pressed its armored snout lightly against his chest, a gesture as intimate as it was terrifying. A mark of recognition. The crew gasped. Kale's voice rang out with unrestrained triumph. It's chosen you. Elias felt the rumble of its purr reverberate through his bones. He placed a hand cautiously against its jaw, the surface warm and impossibly smooth. He whispered words meant for no one but himself, though every soul heard them. "Then may God help us all." The Galactic Council chamber simmered with tension, though no voices dared break the suffocating quiet. Across the expanse of polished stone and star-etched walls, alien representatives shifted uneasily in their seats, their eyes trained on the holographic image projected above the central dais. A creature of nightmares loomed in spectral form. The apex, the devourer, the unchallenged predator whose arrival at any star system had meant annihilation. Armadas had vanished into its maw, fleets reduced to drifting wreckage, and entire species listed it in their historical texts as the prime threat of extinction. Yet the image did not show a beast in the throes of violence. Instead, it displayed an absurd scene captured by reconnaissance drones. The monster crouched in a Terran clearing, its vast jaws parted not in hunger but in something approximating joy as it bounded after a length of wood hurled by a laughing human. The silence broke when Counselor Dravith, a mantis-like elder whose carapace bore the scars of 1,000 campaigns, rasped, "We are witnessing heresy of nature. This impossibility cannot be permitted." His mandibles clicked with outrage, though underneath lay the unmistakable shiver of fear. Others joined in, murmurs rising like a storm. Some accused the humans of witchcraft, others of reckless arrogance. A few even wondered aloud if humanity itself might be the hidden apex, taming what no empire had with sheer audacity. The hall swelled with arguments until the high speaker, draped in shimmering veils of bioluminescent silk, struck the air with her staff, releasing a resonant chord that silenced all but the thrum of blood. "It is not enough to observe," she intoned. "We must decide. The apex cannot be allowed to exist outside council dominion. If humanity has bound it, then we must bind humanity. If humanity has deceived it, then we must seize the deception. If humanity has merged with it, then we must sever them both. This chamber does not permit ambiguity." From the farthest edge of the chamber, a voice cut through the whispers, one laced with the steel of certainty. "You have already lost." All eyes turned toward the speaker. Admiral Reek, scarred, stoic, and notorious for having lost 2 fleets in a futile attempt to halt the apex at the Ortiz Nebula. His hollow eyes seemed to gaze at something long beyond the chamber's confines. "We threw everything at it," he said, each word deliberate. "Thousands of warships. And storms. Even black hole tethers. It learned. It adapted. It grew stronger. And now it chases Styx for them. You do not understand what that means, but I do. That monster bent its instincts to no one, until humanity. If you go against them, you invite extinction." The chamber roiled once more, but beneath the noise lay a chilling truth no one dared dismiss. The apex was unkillable, yet to humanity it was docile, playful, even affectionate. The balance of power that had defined the galaxy for millennia tilted in a direction that left elder races gasping. Meanwhile, on Earth, a very different drama unfolded. Lucas and Aiden were oblivious to the heated debates among the stars. They were preoccupied with survival of another kind, ensuring their unusual companion remained hidden long enough for the world not to implode in panic. In the rural clearing, the apex, whom Aiden insisted on calling Rex, bounded eagerly, tail whipping up gusts of air as it skidded to retrieve the stick once more. Its tongue lolled, its jagged teeth glinting like the edges of suns, yet its gaze fixed on Lucas with nothing but unshakable devotion. "You realize," Lucas muttered, watching the towering beast crash back toward them with the subtlety of an earthquake, "that if anyone sees this, we're done. Governments, militaries, mad scientists, hell, even the neighbors with their drones." Aiden caught the stick as Rex dropped it with a slobbery huff, unfazed by the monstrous saliva that would have corroded steel. He smirked, tossing it again with a snap of his wrist. "Or maybe," he said, "we're the only ones who finally figured out the truth. It was never a monster. Just lonely." Lucas snorted, though the words clung to him. He had seen enough terror in the thing's eyes the first night it emerged from the forest, hungry, enraged, broken by eons of war. Yet now the apex sat expectantly at their side, whining softly when Aiden delayed the next throw, as if stripped of the nightmare cloak the galaxy had wrapped around it. Perhaps Aiden was right. Perhaps humans had simply recognized what no one else had dared to imagine. Their reprieve fractured when the first distant hum reached them. Lucas stiffened instantly. "Hear that?" Aiden frowned, tilting his head. From above, the faint shimmer of light descended, a craft, sleek and angular, bearing insignia no human nation claimed. "Not drones," Lucas whispered. "His gut twisted. Council scouts." Rex raised its head, a low growl reverberating from its chest. Its spines flared, instinct returning with predatory speed. Lucas pressed a hand against its flank, murmuring urgently, "Not yet. Stay." The beast shuddered, torn between primal urge and the bond that anchored it. The ship landed with a hiss of displaced air, its hull reflecting the forest canopy. From the ramp descended three figures, their bodies swathed in armor that shimmered like shifting glass. Weapons hummed at their sides, clearly designed to pierce even Apex hide. Their leader, tall and gaunt, raised a hand in greeting that carried no warmth. "Humans," he said, voice filtered through translation notes. "By order of the Galactic Council, you will relinquish the creature into our custody. Compliance spares your species further complications." Lucas felt Aiden tense beside him. Rex bared its teeth. For a moment, the world held its breath. Aiden stepped forward, eyes narrowed, voice steady. "You don't get it, do you? He's not your weapon. He's not your monster. He's ours. And if you think you're going to drag him away, you're about to learn the same lesson every fleet before you did." The alien leader tilted his head, expression unreadable. Then, with a subtle gesture, he activated his weapon. Lucas' heart hammered. The clearing was no longer just a playground for an impossible friendship. It had become the first battleground of a war neither side fully understood, and every choice from this moment would determine whether humanity rose as the galaxy's tamers, or fell as its final prey. The apex, poised between feral instinct and newfound loyalty, growled deep enough to shake the earth. It would not wait much longer. Neither would the council soldiers. And as Lucas and Aiden exchanged a final look, they knew the fragile balance they had clung to was gone. Conflict had arrived on Earth. The grand hall of the Celestial Concord was carved into the hollowed heart of a star. Its walls shimmered with the energy of fused suns, holding the weight of galaxies in a chamber that demanded reverence. It was here that the fate of civilizations was decided. The council chamber had witnessed wars sparked and empires dissolved, but tonight it quivered under the weight of something far greater, the presence of a human and the predator that had once feasted upon fleets. Elias strode into the chamber, every eye on him, the monstrous silhouette of Nyx padding silently at his side. Her obsidian hide drank in the light of the star walls, eyes gleaming with a primal intensity that silenced even the most bellicose delegates. She had been the nightmare of countless species, the whispered curse used to frighten children into obedience. Yet she walked here, unchained, tail swishing like that of a content hound, because a human had told her she could. Whispers rippled through the chamber, the names of the worlds she had devoured spoken with trembling tongues. Karas, the crystalline admiral of the Veari, his form a refracted storm of facets, rose to his full jagged height. His voice cracked like shattering glass. "This is an obscenity. That beast should have been destroyed, and yet you dare parade it into this chamber as though it were a pet." Elias stopped in the very center of the council floor, his voice calm but carrying iron beneath it. "Nyx isn't a beast. She's my friend. She's proven that she can be more than what your records claim if you're willing to see it." He met Karas's fractal eyes without flinching. "I didn't bring her here to frighten you. I brought her here to show you the future you're too afraid to imagine." A low growl rolled from Nyx's throat, not directed at anyone in particular but enough to send entire delegations recoiling. She pressed against Elias's side, her bulk radiating menace even in stillness, but her posture softened at his hand brushing her shoulder. It was a display not of dominance but of trust. Admiral Veari's crystal form shivered in fury. "You expect us to believe that the thing which tore my people's fleets asunder can be tamed with affection? Humans speak of loyalty as though it were universal, but predators are bound by hunger alone. Sooner or later, it will feast again, and you will have doomed us all." Captain Eric stepped forward before Elias could reply, his sharp eyes burning with the force of unspoken conviction. "You all keep repeating the same mistake, believing power can only be wielded through fear. Humanity has lived beside predators since the beginning of our history. Wolves, lions, even great leviathans of the sea, we learn not only to fight them but to live with them. We turn them into allies because we saw what you can't, that survival isn't always about domination. Sometimes it's about trust." The chamber erupted into chaos, voices raised in fear, fury, and disbelief. Some delegates pounded their claws, others clutched translators as though language itself could shield them from the sight of Nyx licking her teeth with slow, deliberate grace. It was then the chamber trembled, not from argument but from an external force. A warning klaxon blared through the star walls. The voice of the council's AI shook with static. Unidentified fleet emerging from slipstream, battle signatures matched scourge vessels. Panic tore through the room. The Scourge, a species of merciless raiders, were feared even by the most militarized empires. No one had anticipated they would be so bold as to strike within the sanctum of the Concord itself. Elias didn't flinch. He turned to Nyx, and without a word, she bared her teeth in a grin that was all hunger and anticipation. For the first time since arriving, she looked alive. Elias's voice was steady. Then let us prove it. Right here, right now. Delegates scattered as the walls opened, revealing the void beyond and the swarm of Scourge ships descending like a plague. The Concord's defenses activated, but already their formations were faltering. The Scourge had come prepared, their firepower overwhelming the station's outer layers. Nyx pressed her head against Elias's chest, awaiting his command like a warhound begging to be unleashed. He whispered into her ear, words too soft for the council to catch, and her wings unfurled in a burst of radiant shadow. In the blink of an eye, she hurled herself into the vacuum. The predator that had devoured fleets was back in her element. She carved through Scourge vessels with a fury that made her past depredations look like a child's game. Claws punctured hulls, teeth tore through armored plating, her tail lashed ships into fragments. But this time she fought with purpose, her strikes purposeful and coordinated, her gaze snapping back toward Elias at every pause, awaiting the next unspoken direction. The council chamber erupted into stunned silence, every delegate frozen as the beast they feared fought to protect them. Eric watched with grim satisfaction, murmuring to Elias, "If this doesn't change their minds, nothing will." But Elias wasn't watching the carnage with triumph. He watched Nyx with a strange, quiet pride, as though he were seeing the future he had spoken of taking shape in front of him. The Scourge tried to regroup, their flagships converging on Nyx in a desperate attempt to overwhelm her, but Elias raised his voice. "Nyx." She twisted mid-charge, intercepting their formation before they could focus their fire. A roar rippled through the void, a sound that carried into the chamber through the star walls, primal enough to make even the most hardened warlords pale. In a coordinated dance of violence, Nyx dismantled the flagship, ripping its heart out with her jaws and hurling the remains into the fleet, scattering them into chaos. The battle was over in minutes. The Scourge retreated, their losses catastrophic, their pride shattered. Nyx returned, her form streaked with the remains of broken ships, landing with a ground-shaking impact at Elias's side. She bowed her head to him, awaiting acknowledgement. The council sat in stunned silence. It was Karas, the crystalline admiral, who finally broke it. His voice was no longer sharp with fury, but heavy with awe. You changed her. A weapon made of nightmares, and she obeys you." Elias stroked Nyx's muzzle, his expression firm. "I didn't change her. I believed in her. That's something your people have forgotten how to do." He looked around the chamber, meeting every pair of fearful eyes. "You don't need to fear what's strong. You need to learn how to stand beside it." Eric added, voice cold and cutting. "The Scourge will think twice before attacking again. And not because of your fleets or your walls. But because of a predator that fights for a human, not against him." Silence lingered, but it was a silence pregnant with realization, not denial. The balance of the galaxy had shifted, and every leader present knew it. Nyx settled at Elias's feet, curling into a surprisingly gentle sprawl, her eyes closing as though nothing extraordinary had happened. Elias rested his hand on her hide, feeling the steady rhythm of her breath. In this quiet moment he understood what others could not, that power wasn't in domination nor in destruction, but in the bond that turned terror into trust. The council chamber remained frozen, galaxies of history pressing down on the moment, until the Veari admiral bowed his crystal head in reluctant respect. "Perhaps, humanity has more to teach us than we thought." Elias's lips curved into the smallest of smiles, his voice steady as he replied. "Or perhaps you've only just begun to listen." The predator that had once devoured fleets yawned, stretched like a loyal hound, and dozed at the feet of a human. And the galaxy, for the first time in its long, fearful history, looked at the beast and did not see extinction incarnate. Saw hope.